Bam.
Official as fuck, boy.
Official as fuck. I think we're rolling. And we're already lagging. It's probably my internet.
I just saw a mommy deer and a baby deer in the ditch.
I'm proud of you. Welcome.
As Brian's daughter would say.
Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Episode, I believe, 31. It's your boy, Devin Patterson. This is like almost a double redemption at this point. One of my guests here, Brian Rogers, you guys will probably remember as a guest on our first podcast that we did over the phone or whatever you call it, and it was terrible. The app we used just wasn't good. There was a lot of lag, but so since then I've been wanting to get Brian back on, talk about how he's really good at killing big deer, and so we finally got him back on 2 weeks ago probably now, Brian. And I'm really good at technology. I don't know if I've made that clear on this podcast yet, but basically I saved the episode to the laptop and not the cloud for Zoom, and then it was too big for my laptop to download. So we're trying number 3. This is a double redemption episode. But the good thing about this one is that we're able to squeeze BJ in because he slept on us last time. So welcome back, gentlemen.
Yeah, that's totally on me.
He's like, yeah,
I
I'm
got
down.
held over on a Sunday morning, and I got held over on a Sunday morning, and then I was like 3 hours into my Sunday sleep schedule, and I totally blanked on it.
Well, you owe us both for wasting our time.
That's true.
Sad.
But thank you guys for jumping on here. It's almost 10 o'clock p.m. on a Sunday night. So normal.
My day's just starting.
Yeah, normal awake hours for me and BJ, but Mr. Rogers, appreciate you staying up late and being willing to do this again because I'm just terrible at what I do.
Thank
He
my
makes
wife.
his own hours. He makes his own hours. Don't let him fool you.
It sounded good.
I got a 7-year-old that's sick, and I have a baby that was screaming, and finally everybody is silent, and my wife was gracious enough to let me partake. So
whiskey helps with that.
She got pissed when she heard the energy drink crack open because she knew that she knew I wasn't gonna be able to sleep. So
well, good. Welcome back.
That's what melatonin's for, right?
Absolutely. Or whiskey. BJ,
Brian's a fighter when he
his way.
drinks.
Oh God. What? I don't even want to know. But anyways, BJ's on his way to work right now, so I'm gonna try. Right, I'm gonna try to upload this to YouTube as well, so it's another outlet, and we all obviously have video. So we'll see. But yeah, that's why BJ looks like his phone's on the floorboard because he's driving to work. So
it's in the cup holder. We're good.
Appreciate
How
you.
How long do you have till you're at work?
Till I'm in the parking lot, probably 20 minutes. Till I have to clock in, probably 40 minutes.
Oh, nice.
So
yeah.
We're good. We're good on time. If I got to bug out 10, 15 minutes early, that ain't no problem.
Yeah, we usually get done in about 15 minutes. Me and Brian don't have a whole lot to say.
Yeah, we can talk shit about Brian after he leaves anyway. So
that's for sure. I think the last episode was about an hour and a half. Which is why it was too big, and we could have kept going for at least another hour. But
it's nothing you won't say. It's nothing you won't say to my face. So,
oh, absolutely. Since you won't be able to hear it, I just want to let you in on it because I told you I gave you a little bit of shit. I told Rogers here that it was pretty funny whenever I was watching the video of you guys creeping through the woods on his first buck, and I'm like, how do you be sneaky with a fucking ogre like that? You just can't be sneaky.
Hey, ask anybody I've ever played sports with. I may not be very
small,
like majestic, but I have very narrow athletic ankles. So I can be stealthy when needed.
It doesn't help you when you're going through thick brush and you're a giant.
I know. See, that's a problem. That is a problem. But
Well, I told him last time about how we was creeping through with your big ass, and then we look back and Woody's got the brightest light ever made by Samsung, basically going the entire time while he's videoing us. And we're trying to creep through the woods, and we look back and Woody's got us on high def back there.
Yeah, he had the flash on, didn't know it.
Yeah, so that's leads me to my next thing, a brief introduction. For those of you who, you guys probably already do know the guy, people listening to this, but just in case not, Brian Rogers and BJ are both a part of the Pike County Trophy Doe Dorks or Trophy Doe Hunters Association. Something weird. They're all nerds. Tree huggers.
Represent, baby.
Doe Lives Matter. And then Brian Rogers mainly runs, but Good Sit Productions on YouTube. So
check us out.
The first buck of this year that we're going to be talking about, that video is already out. Any ETA on the second one?
So I've been just every night I keep telling myself I'm going to start on it, and all I end up doing is watching all of the footage over and over and over, and just never actually starting the editing process. Just sitting there, just watching all the footage and figuring out what I'm going to do. And
you'll get it.
Yeah, eventually I'm going to actually stop procrastinating and just make the first little piece. And once that starts, the problem is I kind of have like an obsessive personality. So I know the reason is once I start it, I know that like after that I will have to finish it. So
right.
I'm kind of waiting till after Christmas to start it. That way I don't catch any shit from the wife for not being present around all of the holiday festivities. So understandable. Otherwise I'll be editing on Christmas morning and shit.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Well, once your newborn can hold up her bottle by herself, you'll be able to do it one-handed.
Yeah, exactly. She's going to be part of the process eventually. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Congrats again on that, by the way. That new kid.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Had a little alien. So, anyways,
alien with a mohawk, man.
They're all aliens when they're born, dude.
Absolutely. That's to say to everybody. So don't take any offense.
No, absolutely. I totally get it. Actually, I think she's shit a total of 57 times today that I've had to change. So
I love how like our podcasts always gravitate towards taking shits.
It's shitting and killing, man. That's it. That's all that matters.
Which it's like, now that I know what the sky dump is, it's not as cool. It's not like the first time, but we're definitely going to talk about it again.
Yeah. That's the only reason he bought a 2-panel saddle, so his sky dumps were easier.
I know. I went through a whole process of talking about it last time, and I feel like it was lost. So
we'll try to bring it back.
The ultimate shitting tree stand system. So,
which if people remember or tolerated the last episode, it was pretty rough. However, Brian talked about his mobile shit. Actually, I think that was the title of the podcast, was mobile shitting systems. Where he was all for shitting the most efficient way in the woods with scent coverage. Is that a bottle of whiskey on your way to work?
No, it's water.
But being most efficient in the woods while taking a shit. But he has now adopted a new strategy. It's pretty fantastic, and we'll get to that.
It's the mobile shitting system 2.0, basically.
Fantastic. Or AKA sky dump.
Yeah. It actually is no longer it's no longer containing the shit. It's now allowing it to go live its best life freely in the woods from your tree stand. So
I honestly think you should just change your name to Good Shit.
Well, I always thought about having it say Good Sit and then having like an H with an arrow like pointing down in between where it should go.
For sure.
But, that'll come once we get more marketing money. So
yeah, get your own toilet paper or something.
Yes.
Better biodegradable toilet paper for the woods. Anyways, man, a huge reason why I want to get you on, not just because you're kind of a cool guy and I know you now, but you kill bucks, man. You have bucked out how many years in a row now?
3. Yep.
3 years in a row. And this year your first one was on your first sit, correct?
It was on my third sit.
Okay.
Yep. My first sit of the year, I actually almost died one sticking. I thought for sure I was going to be hanging from like 3 different ropes dead in the tree.
We didn't even talk about this one on the last podcast.
No, yeah, we never got to because we went right into the whole shitting thing, and that really took over about 45 minutes of our podcast last time. So
I'm not mad about it. I'm just mad that it's not going to be able to be released to the world.
Yeah.
Man, so let's break down this first hunt strategy wise, even preseason. Obviously we've done this once already, so I kind of know some of the answers, but just to kind of paint a picture, you talked about scouting a specific area because of some life events that were going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, paint a picture for us.
Yeah. So knowing that I definitely missed the mark with the baby due date because it took about 5 to 6 months longer than what we expected. I was trying to get it in there, to where the baby was not going to need my full attention during hunting season, and she was due October 26th. So I definitely
You failed.
I fucked up. Beyond all recognition, but
You need to do better at math.
Yeah. I only got so many fingers and toes, though. That's the problem.
That's right.
Yeah. But anyway, she was due. So I kind of switched up. In years past, I've had success early season, but it was very hit or miss. And it was not really calculated enough, as far as like, it was always like, yes, I'm going to hit it hard, but like I always gave myself that buffer of like the rut and everything else is coming. So like I didn't look at it like a had to get it done early type mentality necessarily. Like, yes, I put a lot of energy into it and stuff like that, but I didn't necessarily scout for early season spots and try and stack the odds in my favor as much as I did this year, as well as I wanted to be close to the road and within cell service if I could, only because I knew that if I was going to be hunting close to the due date, things could change very rapidly. So knowing that, I did a lot of scouting close to the road, looking for places that are overlooked, and ultimately both of the deer that I killed were based off of scouting because of around that. Even the gun one later on, which I also had bow success on, even though I didn't end up with a kill. It all ended up being based off of the scouting. So if I could stress one thing, it's that I don't think I've ever killed a big deer without some form of scouting. It always came from some previous knowledge of something that led to that. It wasn't just like, oh, this looks like a good spot, and I'm going to sit here, and then bam, there it was. You know what I mean?
Right. For sure. That's what I do.
Yeah.
Except it's not ever a good spot.
Yeah, go ahead. Basically though, it was two totally separate types of scouting that ended up leading to the success. So like the very first one was an area that I went into and just kind of found multiple old historic rub lines, made sure that the rubs were what I thought were made by good bucks, and lots of them, not just like, oh, this could have been made during the rut. Like I wanted to see based off of the terrain and the food and all that stuff like that. Like there was hardwoods, there was a kind of a thick brushy bottom with a creek, and then there was private ag surrounding it. And then there was multiple different rub lines as you move through there. There was historic data. So then I just basically surrounded all of the entrances where they were leading into this one bedding area with cameras. And my whole idea was to wait till there was like a cold front. And even though it was 72 degrees, that was actually the cold front day. Cause like Brian knows, me and him, we're definitely believers in Jeff Sturgis's whole hunt the cold fronts and stuff like that. Cause we've seen it firsthand, definitely on our camera pulls and stuff like that, activities definitely spikes anytime something changes, wind direction, all that
temperature,
stuff.
precipitation, and wind.
Right. So
in that order.
Yeah, we are definitely believers in that. Now I'm also, even though we both are believers in that, I still think you should hunt anytime you get a chance. But if you're if you have the ability to move your days around, hunt those fronts, because you're just going to see deer moving more freely, during that period. But that doesn't mean you can't catch them anytime. It's just
Right.
that's your best, highest odds.
That
Just
makes
like
sense.
just like Jeff preaches. But I've killed my two biggest bow bucks, and of course they were both on November 10th, but they were on extremely hot days right before a giant temperature drop. So I believe too that there's some value in hunting as that front is about to hit, even if it's warm. I believe there's a lot of value there, because one of them was on a 77-degree day. I shot him at 65 degrees, and the other one was on a 55-degree day. And then the next day it was basically like extreme cold, blizzard-like conditions on one, and then extreme cold the next day too. And so I think that there's a lot of value. I think those, when they feel that there's a sharp spike like that, I think they know that it's gonna.
That's pretty interesting, because I always hear wait until the front comes through and then hunt the backside of that front.
And I think maybe early season and stuff like that may be true. But I've had luck 2 years in a row, not last year and the year before, November 10th, and they were very warm days right before a cold front, and they were both the bucks were up and moving. Obviously going through check and doe bedding during daylight. So
that's interesting.
Well, it could be also because usually the wind switches about a half a day before the front hits.
Right.
It could be they were just cruising with the favorable wind right before the shitty weather or the cold weather. That could be part of it too. Because I think on the first buck, the one me and Trevor helped you drag up that hill 19 miles, that one I think was completely wind based. And then the other one, the November 10th one from last year, that 140, was it a 10 or a 12?
He was a 10. I think he went 144 if I remember right.
Okay, yeah, that buck, that was just ass crack of dawn on a super hot day.
Yeah, it was the cold part of the day.
So
even though it was 65 degrees, that was the cold part of the day, right?
Right.
That was 6 days into last year's like miserable rut weather.
And the funny part about that is I had to cancel my rutcation last year, and so I only had and it goes back to like hunt when you can, because you never know, especially during the rut. But like I had that Sunday and that was it. So literally the first 20 minutes and I pop him, and I didn't need my rutcation. I needed 20 minutes in the woods. And the cool thing about that is the hunt right before that, I'd killed that 122-inch 8-pointer. So it was a back-to-back hunt. Well, then you get to this year, and I shot my other buck within the third day. Oh, there goes my lights. I shot my other buck within the third day, and then I had my baby. Then the very next hunt, I go in and I miss. I hit branches twice on a really big buck, and so I almost had within like 5 hunts there. I had four opportunities, 5 or 6 hunts, and so I guess my point is like you really got to. You have to pay attention to the wind and the cold, and the weather and all that stuff. But sometimes that goes out the window, and you just got to be in the woods, because you just don't know during the rut.
For sure. Well, I mean, back to your first deer this year, the thing that's so cool about it for me is that it wasn't anywhere near the rut. It was super early season where most guys wouldn't be in the woods. They're not even thinking about being in the woods, and you're walking in sweating, and you smoke a freaking a horse with antlers on it.
He had a huge body.
Oh my God, 257 pounds or something, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was that. I think he was a little bit more than that if I had to guess. I don't remember the exact weight from the meat locker now, but I think he was up closer to 280 if I had to guess. But
he was a freaking giant, man.
Giant body, and it's crazy when he came in. And I saw he's just standing there eating, and he's just got mouthful of like green leaves and shit. He just looked like a big old slob, man. Just a big fat buck sitting there just eating, getting fat. And I'm like, well, his rack is, it's like tall. It's not going to score high, but I'm like, just sitting here looking at this big, thick neck, giant body. I'm like, this dude is old, man.
Yeah.
So
you can't not shoot that guy. He's freaking huge. So back up a little bit to, you've scouted this area. You've found this pretty close to the road. You got a good bedding area. You're seeing a bunch of rubs. You've deployed some cameras. So when did you deploy those cameras? Do you remember?
Yeah. So it was about a month, no more than a month and a half prior to that, but I would say about a month. So I usually wait for a couple of reasons. So I don't put my cams out necessarily as early as a lot of guys. A lot of guys start around like July. I like to wait till like mid-August. The only thing I ever run into is sometimes, like this year, I didn't get all of my cameras out. But if you get them out too early, you risk a lot of things, like obviously theft, but not even just theft. You risk your batteries, because if you run them in the hot temperatures, they get a lot more false readings because you get the grass heating up or whatever, and then all of a sudden you're burning through your batteries when you don't need the intel. Because like a lot of guys are jacked up about that, that velvet, those velvet pictures and stuff.
Right.
And that's great, but like I don't want pictures of deer that doesn't really help me out any.
Yeah, when you can't kill them.
Right. I want pictures of deer when I can kill them, and so I like to wait just a little bit longer. So sometimes it burns you, and like this year I didn't have as much time because I was getting ready for the baby and stuff like that. So I was at like 80% getting my cams out, but it ended up being enough. So, but the other thing is too, is like I split up my camera strategy between like traditional spots that I know tend to be good, monitoring pressure and, monitoring any movement and things like that. Cause, food sources and pressure and all that are obviously going to change things. So if I go into an area, check it, see a lot of people on it, things aren't moving, I'm probably going to X that out, move on somewhere else. So I like to get out there, get them up. And like we talked about last time, I always take a stick with an aider, hang it up about 10 to 12 foot, use the old stick method, put the stick behind and angle it down. And I try to cover, a good trail and get it hidden off the trail. You never want it, if you can help it, you never want it right on the trail, aiming down for the deer and for the people, because deer, especially big bucks, are going to spot your camera. Especially if that infrared's going off and it's right in their line of sight. So
something I remember you also said is deploy 2 or 3 cameras in a smaller area just in case 1 or 2 of them stop working or
absolutely you're gonna have batteries screw up, you're gonna have moisture, you're gonna have squirrels get on there and move them around, you're gonna have one get stolen, you're gonna have somebody take your SD card. And if you want that intel, that's another reason why I surrounded like that bedding area was I want at least some intel of what's using it. And if this one gets messed with, that lets me know that there's people over there. Now I can move on to the next one. So I always look at my trail camera getting messed with as a good thing too, because that gives me intel that somebody's in there and somebody doesn't want me in there.
Right. They don't want you knowing what else is in there.
Right. Because most of the time, those cheap cameras aren't getting stolen because people want the cameras. They're getting stolen because they don't want you in there and they don't want you to have the intel. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to get you to push out of there. And the deer I killed this year, there was 4 different tree stands, 5 actually, all basically circling around where I ended up killing this deer, but they were not down in that bottom where the deer were moving during daylight. So
now, and I was going to ask you this later, but since you brought it up, I'll ask it now. Why do you think nobody was down in there? Was it harder to get to, or
No, because they're sitting up on the hardwoods. They're sitting on the edges, waiting for the deer to come out there. Right. They know that the deer are using that as a bedding area. If they hunted enough, I mean, it's loaded up.
Sure.
They're thinking they're going to catch them coming out of that bottom, hit that acorn flat, or heading out to that bean field, or heading across the street to the cornfield. And those deer, I'm not saying that that's not going to work, but a big deer. So the big deer that I shot and where he died was like a thermal hub, right? He's sitting down there. He's got his greens, he's got his water, and he's got his hardwood ridge right there blocking. So if anybody's coming down there, he's going to see him. If anybody's coming from the parking lot, he's going to see him. And he's definitely going to smell anything along that creek there, because that creek and that bottom is creating like a thermal hub right there. So he feels comfortable down in there. And I think that's why he ended up circling back around and coming back in there, because he just had lived down in there so long. He knew that even when people came through there, his escape routes were so good. So that's another thing. So I believe like that a deer, if his escape route works, now you can't screw with a big deer too much, but if his escape route works on an area, it just solidifies his belief that that area is good. So like if you bust a big deer out of there, he's like, yeah, I got away. I'm going to come back in there. That's where he felt safe. So
yeah, I remember like Cody DeQuisto and Andre talk about that a lot, where if you're not bumping your target buck 1 or 2 or 3 times, you're not hunting him hard enough. And they talk about they typically bed in those areas because they either saw you, smell you, or heard you before you got there, and that area worked for them. So they're going to come back. It's just a matter of time. Now
you got to figure out the chink in their armor, right?
Right. You start bumping them 4 or 5 times, and multiple days in a row, then obviously they're going to find somewhere else to go. But
the other thing too is the spot where he was bedded, watching people that were probably coming from the parking lot. If I'd have just went that couple hundred, it was like 200 or 300 yards straight line, then yeah, I would have never killed that deer. But instead, I circled around and went 3 times as far just to go the same distance, come in the back door where they're not used to a lot of people coming from, because everybody hunting those fringes is just coming to that edge there. They're not pushing in there. And so if I went down back in there and got right up next to where he was bedded and where he felt safe. So
let me ask you this. So you go out, you scout this area, you find good sign, you deploy cameras, but I know you don't use cell cameras, or very few if you do, but there weren't any cells there. So
I never have. I just put up a thing tonight to stir some shit. So
yeah, that was funny.
I honestly don't care what anybody else does. I just wanted to see what everybody had to say about it.
Yeah, it was pretty good. And we may get to that later, but so what made you think this would be a good area to start with at the beginning of the season without having to going back in there to check your cameras yet?
So it seemed like with the standing corn still on one side, and then there was I knew that there was a lot of hardwoods, with mass in there and stuff like that. My thought was that it could be a good early season. All I had to go off of was the rubs and scrapes that were leading in there. I hung my cams. I hadn't checked it. So my idea was to go along the fringe and check each rub line that I had found, see if anything opened up. It just so happened that first rub line and all the way up to the rub or the beds that I had scouted, there was rubs and scrapes leading all up there, just like, you would want there to be. So at that point, I didn't need to keep going and checking as I went on down like the ridges, because I had an entire area scouted out. Now, if nothing was opened up,
you'd have kept pushing.
Right. So I would have kept pushing, or maybe even left and went somewhere else. So
right. Okay. So was that, you said that was your 3rd sit of the year?
Yes.
Was it your first one at that exact location, or was that your 3rd time back in there?
It was my first time in that particular location. My other 2 times I had thrown at a totally separate area, and I had no luck at the other 2 spots. My first day, like I said, I went in there, had a lot of issues. Somebody had already stolen a trail camera in that area. I still had really good sign in there, and me and BJ actually ended up hunting up in there later. We got on a nice 2-year-old in there, and there were bucks that were in there before and after us that we just didn't see. So
sure,
monsters.
Yeah, and I had a good shit that day under BJ's tree too. So
fantastic.
Yeah, he snuck down. Now that we hung together in the morning, and then he was debating midday, like 1 or 2, if he was going to go home, go to work, or if he was going to stay all day. Well, then we checked those cameras, and we looked at each other and we're like, well, we can't leave now.
Right.
We got 10 shooters in here in daylight. So he's like, all right, I'm just going to do what I got to do. So he snuck down to the creek. He snuck down to the creek and fucking, talked to the Lord for a minute, and then came back up and he goes, all right, we're all better.
Now, question, did you tether yourself back to the tree, although your feet were on the ground, so you could have a good squatting position for your shit?
No. I just did old school Indian style, fucking let her rip. So Yeah.
Fantastic. Hey, but a good idea for you next time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Take
yeah.
the tether with you and just tie to the tree and just sit like you would normally. It'd be comfortable. You wouldn't have to worry about
if you can
falling.
use a saddle, dude, use it at the office.
Absolutely.
I don't care. Just saddle up, man.
You're in the bathroom with your saddle on.
Yeah.
So your third sit of the year, your first one back in this area. Walk me through your walk in, what you're seeing. Obviously, fresh sign.
Yeah. So
walk me
first
through
thing.
that.
So actually, first thing as I get down to the bottom, I look over at the spot where I was actually thinking about setting up because it was just far enough off of the beds that I felt like they would make it out there. And it also was kind of a like a T of activity. So it led back to, basically was where the rub line came out of the beds and led to this T, and this T also went another way. And so I thought, that's close enough. I should be able to set up there and get a shot. Well, right as I get to the bottom, 3, what I believe were does, took off running towards those beds, and they didn't snort. And I was right along the private public line, and so there was cows over there. So I thought, they didn't snort. They didn't act too alarmed. You know what I mean? They were in their security cover. Once again, their escape route worked, right? And I was being so quiet, like, once I get within that 100-yard mark, I stopped. Like, I stopped at the top of the hill, regained my composure. You want to get your breathing back normal and really focus on every step from that point, because it's when you get within 100 yards or less is when it's, you're kind of in the kind of shit's getting serious zone, right?
For sure.
And
where they're going to be on the pins and needles.
Well, and I didn't get in there quiet enough because they busted out. The wind was coming from them to me. So again, I don't think that they knew what exactly I was. They just knew they weren't going to stand around and find out.
Right.
So
and it probably didn't help that there was no hunting pressure yet at that point, because it was only the third day of season.
Absolutely. And you have that on your side, right? Like, that they probably haven't seen a whole lot of people coming there yet.
Sure.
And so I was like, you know what? I'm still going to go up there because I saw a good rub. So as I get up there, I see a rub and a scrape. Then I get up again, I see another rub and a scrape right there. I check my camera. There's a bunch of good deer in there in September, daylighting like within a week. So I'm thinking, while this is good and I just busted them out of there, and I know those beds are up, a little bit further, I've got another camera up about 60, 70 yards. I'm like, all right, I want to go check that one, get a little bit more intel. Was these rubs made and scrapes made in September, and these deer may necessarily have moved on? Maybe they were just bedding based on when the other corn was standing and blah blah blah. You know what I mean? So
sure.
I really wanted that second camera intel, and hopefully that would tell me what to do.
Knowing that's a huge risk, though. Another 60
right, exactly.
yards.
Yes, because I knew that I'd already pushed those other deer in there, so even they could have still been hanging out in there.
Sure.
And I had the wind in my favor because the wind was blowing out of the northwest, blowing to me, and then down that creek. And so that was at least working in my favor going towards those beds. And so as I snuck up there, right as I get to the camera, I look over and a giant deer busts out of this little oxbow in the creek. So it's like a little oxbow flat down below all of the hardwood ridges there. And so I get up there and he busts out of there, and then obviously I'm jacked. Your adrenaline goes up, but you're also super pissed at yourself for pushing that far, because when you're pushing into bedding that at some point you're too far.
Yes.
And you want to try and guess that before you get there. And I didn't guess it right, but I was going slow enough, quiet enough, didn't make a big stink out of it. And the other thing is, when I busted him, I stood there for like 10 minutes. So like, I didn't make a move, because my thought was, if he ran up, and because a lot of times big bucks, if you ever watch them, they run up 20, 30 yards, maybe 50 yards, and they stop and they stand there and they just look stone cold, stand there for 3-4 minutes.
Yeah, don't move a muscle for up to 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I was like, if he is up there, I'm just going to stand here totally still. And so I waited, I think like 10 minutes, maybe slightly less than that, but a long time, till I felt like he had probably stopped and moved on from there. And so get up, check the camera. And it's kind of funny, actually, because the timestamp was wrong on, I can't remember which camera, but I thought it was saying that all the daytime movement on all these bucks was in the morning. And I was like, well, I just bumped this big ass deer out of here. I was like, the wind is right. I've never honestly tried a bump and dump like that before. So I'm going to back up 30, 40 yards, set up. My only worry was that downwind was up in the hardwoods, but I thought he ran off. He's probably going to stay in the security cover if he circles back around. That was my thinking. He's probably not going to go up in the hardwoods where there's 4 tree stands. So, because if he's been living down in there, he probably knows that there's pressure up in there at some point. So I backed up to this walnut tree and I got set up, and all of a sudden it was like, I think an hour and, hour and a half, hour and 20 minutes later, either him, it was either a bigger buck that was on camera or him. I still don't know for sure, because I caught a glimpse and I caught a big ass rack from behind, and they all look big from behind. So I don't know if it was him.
Messing with shit.
But anyway, he come back around and he stood there eating for minutes. And when he finally offered a shot, I took it and hit him a little far back. So,
hey guys, I hate to be that guy, but I got to take off, go to protect and serve the community.
All right,
You've been
man.
such a valuable part of this conversation. We're gonna miss you so much.
I've been listening to a story I've already heard, so
I know. Hey, be safe out there tonight, buddy.
Yeah, you too. I'll see you guys later. I'll see you, Brian. I'll see you Wednesday.
All right, I love you.
All right, love you, Goo. Love you too. Oh, fuck.
Love you, girl.
Love you. It ain't weird. We ain't kissing cousins. All right. See ya.
Later, bro.
Toodles. So, yeah, let's go back to the shot though. Let's how long did you said you went back about 30 to 40 yards, and is that, I mean, I'm not super familiar with bump and dump because I'm not very good at hunting, but obviously that's probably something to do with wind, correct?
Yeah, well, so the idea is that they're going to circle back around behind where whatever it was bumped them. So at least 30, 40 yards, sometimes more. But the idea was to get back far enough that if they came back and circled around, because if I would have backed up even farther, I wouldn't have had a shot at this deer. So if I'd have went all the way back to where I bumped those does, there's a chance, but he wasn't coming that way. He was circling back around to go back to his bed, and then probably feed out into those hardwoods, eventually, and then out into the ag. But so my thought was back up 30, 40 yards, set up, and there was other deer on the camera. So there was multiple deer that I would have shot. There was one really big deer that was probably upper 140s, maybe mid 140s that I would have definitely shot. Yeah. And then I didn't even notice the deer that I shot until when I was up in the tree stand, and I cause not on that original card pull, but I'm going through and I'm like, oh shit, there's another deer in this photo on the scrape. And it was 2 days ago, daylighting. And so when I saw that, it gave me a little bit more faith that maybe another deer might come through there too. So
sure. Oh yeah. So, and all this is on, or not all this, but some of the things that we're talking about are on the video. So if people go look at Good Sit Productions on YouTube, they'll see all this. So you said the shot was a little back. So tell me about like how he came in on you, and shot selection and everything like that.
Yeah. So I was set up for him to come. So everything ended up working out the way I wanted it to. He circled around the way that I wanted, or he was just in another satellite bed and was working back around to, that area, and then was going to go back up through the same way that the other buck was. It's one of those two things. So I'd like to say that I did my first, bump and dump, but there's a slight chance that it wasn't him.
I'll give you credit for it.
Yeah. However, he did die in the same exact spot that I jumped the other deer out of. So where he felt safe right in that spot. So there's a good chance it was him. Anyway, he come in and, like I said, once I decided that he was a shooter, I was waiting for that, that perfect shot. And I seen there was these 2 trees where there was up and down, but there was going to be an opening there, because there was a bunch of brush where he was feeding. And once I realized that he was not going to make it any closer to me, and he was going to cut back towards the creek, I knew that that was my one chance to take a shot. So I drew back as he was entering into that, and once I saw, well, I should say actually, once he got into that, and once I saw that he turned his head and the whole front part of his body to give me the biggest look at his vitals that I could, that's when I pulled back and shot. And I have a tendency whenever I feel rushed sometimes to make a bit of a snapshot. And I did that here, and I brought my head off just a little bit, just enough to where it threw that arrow just a little bit to the right. And it definitely was not where I was aiming by about probably 5 inches to the right. So that's all it takes. So
yeah, which still, I mean, it's still a very impressive shot because you really did throw the needle, and you can tell on the video. You didn't have much of a gap to shoot through, and you nailed it.
It was like 30, 35 yards. It was in between 30 and 35 yards, somewhere in there.
So when you're shooting in between two trees that are pretty damn close at 35 yards, I mean, that's a tough shot. So
some people might say don't take the shot. I felt like I had enough vitals. I practiced, at 40 all the time. I've killed deer. I've killed big deer at 40 before. So I didn't feel a problem with taking the shot. But sometimes, like I said, when I feel like that's it, I've got a step or two left, and I go to take that shot. I felt, mentally rushed, and that's when mistakes happen. So
yeah, and it's easy to do because things happen super quick in the woods, especially when that's your one opportunity. So I mean, I make questionable shots all the time, but I tell people, I put the practice in and I have the confidence. So I didn't have the confidence to make that shot, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. So. And I hate the way that it ended up happening because people don't understand that we chase these animals. We love, like, we actually really, I love the white-tailed deer, as far as like, I just am addicted to chasing them, watching them, talking about them.
Respect the hell out of them.
Right. And like, I let 50 of them walk and just watch them, and I kill one and we eat it. And, so even though we're out there, big antlers are nice. I do respect the animal, and I hate how it actually ended up happening as far as the deer suffering overnight. So,
but you did. I mean, you played it right, and whenever people watch it in the video, they can see that you backed out immediately. You knew the shot was back,
and at that point, once you realize you made a bad shot, now you owe it to the animal to put it down as quick as you possibly can. And in that case, the only way that I was going to be able to end it quickly was to back out as quietly as possible, not let it see any lights, not let it hear any noise. So I actually left my, super expensive running gun set up in the tree, took my bottom stick and my bow, and headed back the way I came, super quiet, minus dropping my GoPro 360 from the tree stand and having to look for it. Yeah. So after a 20-minute search through the weeds for that, then I headed out.
What time was it that you shot him?
Roughly 6:25, 6:30, somewhere in there.
Yeah. Okay.
So I knew that the gut shot, you got to give him 12, 15 hours.
And he didn't tear ass out of there. I mean, you watched him kind of walk off.
Yeah, he was in a safe place, and he just didn't know what the hell happened. So for him, he was like, I'm just going to go hole up somewhere, and that's what he did. So I was hoping that's what he did. And then when we came back in the morning, sure enough, he was right there, down there in the creek. So
sneaking through with a fucking ogre.
Yeah. With big ass Brian and Woody with the light. So
yeah. So you guys go in the next day and actually jump him up right in that oxbow, like you said, and then he stopped. And
which, by the way, I gotta give Woody a shout out, because he's helped me drag out like 3 deer now. So I give him a hard time about stuff, but he's always answered the call. So he's a good buddy.
Yep. So got the job finished. Got a good fatal hit on him, and he went down right away. So congrats again on a fucking nice buck.
Yeah, man, thank you. And so I was super happy to just get it done, thinking like, hey man, my daughter's coming. If I'm gonna make it happen, it's got to be before she gets here, because I knew I was gonna be be preoccupied with other things more important once she got here. So I was just happy to get one down, and I thought if I could get another one down, that's just a bonus. So
Right. Well, two main things that I'd take out of it are, you know, if you put in the work and find where they're at, big mature deer, big mature bucks move in daylight early October.
Oh yeah.
So that's one, because it's a big myth. A lot of people don't even go in the woods because of it, and that's why, like, people ask me why I put so much time starting October 1. Like, they're out there, they are living, and they're still moving around. Maybe not as much, but I just got to find that right spot, and I just haven't yet. But that's why I grind in October, because they're still out there living, and they can be found and they can be killed. So
You just
know,
got to understand that it's two totally separate types of hunting from the rut. And once you separate that and mentally adjust, it becomes a whole lot easier, because if you're just going to go out there, sit in a good spot and hope for the best, you're going to get minimal results. I mean, you may end up in a good spot and you may have one coming through, but you really have to plan for the wind, the thermals, your bedding and your food source and your pressure. You have to figure that out. As opposed to during the rut, you're looking at a lot more doe bedding, and the way that you play the wind is a lot different too. So, like, if you know a deer is bedded somewhere in October, and you're going to try and get as close to him as you can with the wind in your favor as kind of like a crosswind, right? Because you still want him to be using that bed,
sure,
but you also have to get in there close and tight to it. So you have to have the wind somewhat in your favor. Whereas during the rut, you're going in there with kind of a different mentality of bedding, of like, okay, does are going to bed right here, bucks are going to be crossing their path here, scent checking them. So you want to be downwind from where you think the bucks are going to be scent checking the does, right?
right.
So it's a totally different kind of way you're looking at it, at least for me.
Yeah, for sure. And there's no way for me, at least, to learn other than being out there and experiencing it.
Well, and the other
it's
thing
all
is
work in process.
people are missing out if they don't hunt that 10 to 2 movement during hold up.
I think your battery's gonna die here in a little bit.
Yeah, I know. Well, so my it's a huge revelation when you go out there and you start realizing that those big bucks are moving in the middle of the day, man. They just are. I think a lot of it has to do with they've been to the big show multiple times, and they know better than to go checking bedding areas that don't have does in them. Right. So I think that obviously there's pressure pushing them around, especially on public, but I think even more so because a lot of people don't realize those big bucks, they don't scare the same like a doe will. I think a lot of times they'll sit in their bedding and just sit tight, almost like a rabbit sometimes, and they'll watch you go by and different things. So
yeah,
I don't think pressure always is as much of a role when it comes to archery hunting on public. It can be, but as far as like getting them moving, I think a lot of it has to do with the middle of the day of where the does are. So because you always catch them in the middle of the day, and they're not running or anything like that. They are moving, from one doe bedding area to the next, checking it. You know what I mean? And they're looking in where there should be does, and they're checking it out. So
for sure. So yeah, back to it. That was 1 point. They're moving midday, or moving not midday, but early season bucks still move during the daylight. But two, you talked. I mean, there was 3 or 4 ladder stands within how many yards of this place?
So like there was 4 ladder stands within probably
was creative
70.
enough.
What's that?
Oh, we got a little bit of lag going.
Yeah. So there was like 4 ladders. Well, actually there was 2 hang-ons and 2 ladder stands, and they were all within about 70, 80 yards from where I killed that buck. There was another hang-on probably 100 yards the other way, the way I came in. So,
So, I mean, that shows that just because you're on public, just because there's stands and there's obvious pressure, sometimes being creative can make the difference, and you can still get it done even with those odds stacked against you.
Well, and my thoughts were they were all along the edge of the private. So either they're guys coming off of the private onto the public and not pressuring that bottom, or they're guys on public, and if they are hunting over there, they're probably not going through the bottom. And if they are, then I was just going to keep moving. If there was no sign, there was no sign. But there was too much historical sign for me to just write it off, because it was just a clear cut runway of rubs and scrapes, if you know what to look for.
Sure.
So
Now let me ask you, it's kind of hard to tell in the video. And maybe this is a reason why nobody's down there, but for me at least, I'm trying to learn how deer move by watching them, right?
Mhm.
So sometimes I try to plan and I get a stand somewhere where I can see a lot of area. Do you think maybe that's what they're doing, thinking I'm on a field edge, deer come to the field, I can see a long ways away, I can see a lot of deer, hardwoods, I can see through the woods, whereas maybe this bottom was thicker. Like I said, it's hard to see in the video how thick it is down there, but I mean, what was your field of view?
okay, so that's the thing is, so like there's different kinds of bedding, and I believe that he was utilizing both sight and uh, what do you call it? His nose, his scent, right? So I think he was utilizing both in that area, which because there's a strong thermal pull down at that creek in that bottom right there. But I also think that he was used to pressure coming from a certain way. I don't think that the pressure from behind him on those hardwood ridges was necessarily coming down there and ever really busting him out unless they
Sure.
shot something or whatever. I do think that he's used to it coming from the road on the public, you know what I mean? Because it was really close to the parking lot, and
Right.
so I think that's the way he was set up. And then also any scent coming from down that creek or from over there, he would smell probably before they even got there. And then he could look the way that I was coming because it was more open. Okay,
Right.
so and so where I was at was an open area pushed up against the creek, and then it was brushy all along to the right. So it was kind of like a force field of anything that had to come through there had to come through that brush.
Yeah.
Anything that came over that hardwood ridge, he's going to see, you know, as they're coming up over that ridge or here,
Sure.
and then he's going to bust out of there. So especially being on that oxbow with the creek surrounding him, he was kind of pushed up against that wall right there of that hardwoods, and he felt probably impenetrable if I had to guess, and he
Sure.
was because
Yeah.
he
Because it
busted me.
worked.
Right.
Right.
So
You were just stealthy enough for him not to know what it was.
absolutely, I think that I think with uh one thing with what do you call it, with age or with experience, I should say. Yeah, with experience is just not freaking out, because there was a time in my life where I've been like, son of a, you know, throwing
Oh,
a
for
fit
sure.
and like, well, this day's over. Like
Yeah.
I just spooked out a giant buck. Like I'm going home. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
And just having enough knowledge of what deer do when they're spooked, and you know, also what they're looking for, because they're looking for movement.
And
Like
what kind of spook there was, you know? You knew you didn't spook the hell like super hard.
I knew he didn't smell me. I knew he didn't know exactly what I was because I was going way too slow for him to know what
Mhm.
I was. And I was kind of through a little bit of a tree or whatever. So he just knew there was something there that probably wasn't supposed to be there. He wasn't sure what it was. He's going to err on the side of caution because he's been bumped from that spot enough times.
Sure.
And so he just made a big loop, you know, he went up, went around, and figured, hey, that guy's probably pushed on by now,
Yeah.
or
Well, and
whatever it
and
was.
I mean, even a good example of that. So I have this new thermal monocular. I fucking love it. But I got into a tree stand here by my house. It's been about 3 weeks ago now,
Hmm.
and it was dark, so I'm using that. Well, I see a deer bedded down on the so I'm kind of on the top, kind of bowls down on the bottom, and then it goes to another ridge up top on the other side. And so the deer was bedded on that ridge or that hillside, and I watched a coyote through the thermal come in and kick him up or kick it up. But you can't tell if it's male or female, but kick that deer up, and then they realized it was a coyote, and then let it run by, and then I mean 15 yards, walked 15 yards, and just laid right back down. So they get
Absolutely.
jumped up all the time, you know. So
Oh,
as long
dude,
as as long as they don't see you or hear you, then or see you or smell you, they're hearing you. Obviously, that's why they're getting out of there. But if they don't know what you are, I think you're fine.
well, and just to prove my point on that, another thing. So, uh, the next time I went out after that kill, up on the ridge where I eventually ended up killing my shotgun buck, uh, I get up in there, and well, I had 5 coyotes chasing a little doe by me in at first light, but um, what I'm trying to say is that I ended up getting busted by a doe, and she snorted probably I don't know, 20 times right there while she's standing there 20 yards
Mhm.
looking at me, but I'm staying close to the tree. I'm not moving. just because she's busted me doesn't mean it's game over.
No.
She still doesn't know what I am.
Yeah.
She knows I'm not supposed to be there. She knows I'm something new. You know what I mean? And she's doing her job, and she's alerting, anything that she needs to, and she's stomping, she's snorting. But what's funny is she left, and then all of a sudden I would hear her like a half an hour later, she came back in and was snorting again. So
Yeah.
like, I think for like an hour, maybe an hour and a half period, I think 3 different times she snorted.
Yeah.
And like multiple times of, when I say 3, I mean like was snorting multiple times, because she knew that was where she wanted to bed, or where she was used to coming in and feeling secure, and something wasn't right in there.
Sure.
And but I had multiple deer after her. The next one being a giant buck at 20 yards, right where she had just been, like an hour and a half before, an hour before, at like 10 o'clock in the morning. And so, just because you have a deer scare or snort, I mean, they are used to. When I ended up killing my buck, I busted out a giant flock of turkeys that I'd seen every time in there, and they were making 7 kinds of hell. And the other times when I went in there and had deer, I busted deer out of the creek. I could hear bucks, running out of the creek and snorting and stuff like that. But like, they are used to disturbance. So
For sure.
Unless they are 100% certain that something is in there and it's making a bunch of noise, it's not leaving, or you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't mean that it's game off to them.
Oh yeah, you sit in the woods long enough and you'll hear deer blow all over the place, nowhere
Yep.
even near you. You just hear it. And I mean, those are, especially those old nannies that are just smart. I mean, they're old and big for a reason. They're scared of everything. It could be a freaking bird that
Absolutely.
scared them enough. So I mean, I think maybe it puts the other deer that are in the area on the edge a little bit more, and maybe a little bit more cautious and uses the wind a little bit more. But like you said, it doesn't necessarily stop them from going wherever they were going to go.
Right. And a lot of the times younger deer are, the younger does and stuff like that are snorting. They've seen they've seen the mom,
Sure.
the nanny doe or whatever do it and stuff like
Just
that.
trying to
So
mimic.
they're mimicking it at things. And I mean, the bucks don't really paying that much attention a lot of the time. So they might look like, when she was snorting, I had, oh, hold up. Edit this out.
Nah, it's all raw. We're going with it all.
That's all right. Let me get this sucker. All right. So when she was snorting, though, I had a button buck actually bedded 20 yards from me, right where I ended up shooting at that bigger buck. It was in a thicket, like 20 yards from me. And he had been coming in there and just been bedding in there for like 20, 30 minutes. He probably would have sat there for a couple hours. She come in the same trail, which when he came in on the trail, I knew for a fact if a more mature deer came, like I had already called. I was like, if a big doe comes right in here, I'm going to get busted. Or if a big buck comes down that trail, I'm going to have to shoot him before he gets to the point of no return. But anyway, as she was going off, that button buck, he didn't freak out and run out of there. He got up like, what now?
Yeah, right.
Okay, whatever. Like, stood there for a little bit, kind of looking around, still eating, and then just slowly made his way off. Like, all right, I guess I'll leave. Like, as she's still going batshit crazy up there.
Mm-hmm.
So like, even this button buck didn't really care that much while she was standing there doing it. So if that tells you anything about how seriously they take, the blowing. So.
Oh yeah. Like I said, they blow all the damn time. So it's not a game over. So, excuse me. So moving forward to your second one, man, you shot another big boy, first season shotgun, correct?
Yep.
So let's break that one down.
Yeah. So that was, opening morning, I think roughly 7:30 or so.
Unless you don't want to give too many details before the video comes out.
Yeah, that's the thing is, I don't want to ruin it, man. But
I love that.
I don't think
rawness.
I don't think a whole lot of people watch shotgun videos anyway. You catch a lot of flack anytime you shoot something with a gun. So I don't care. I'm unapologetically a gun hunter. So I shot
took
this
300
one
blackout today.
Yeah, I don't care, man. I love hunting, and like you probably saw a post I put on the Run and Gun or the Mobile Hunter site, which basically to me it's just it's just as awesome to get out there, open a morning gun, you hear the gunshots going, and another point to that too is like when I shot this one with a gun, he went down. There was no question, there was no suffering. It was just boom, he was done.
Yeah.
So the there's nothing wrong with shooting with a gun as far as I'm concerned. So.
No, and honestly, and this is something that I keep trying to work towards, is like you hear a lot of people talk about how they grew up, and as they were like kids, they would go to hunt camp with their parents or grandparents, and they would all have like this big camp all weekend. They go out, with their blaze orange on, and it was a tradition, and it was something that they remember for the rest of their life, year after year after year. And it's something that I want to start because I didn't have that. But like my dad growing up, when I was growing up, like we didn't have a whole lot of money, but he worked his ass off, so he didn't have time to go hunt. He liked to go. He had a bow, he had a shotgun, and we lived out in the country, but he just couldn't go enough to justify it because he had to go work. I mean, he's worked construction his whole life. So I usually get a shotgun tag or a firearms tag, but I'll take my bow out just because a lot of the areas I hunt private land. It's super thick, so if I'm shooting something, I'm going to shoot it with my bow because I'm not going to be able to shoot it with a gun regardless. It's just not going to. I can't see them before they get too close. But
Absolutely.
I asked him, and he actually went out with me this morning. It's the first time I ever hunted with my dad, and it was just awesome. I mean, I wasn't like super worried about even seeing deer. Definitely not even caring if I killed a deer, but just being out there with him and maybe starting something that maybe throughout the years we'll be able to continue. Cause I know he had a good time. Like I said, he tried hunting whenever he was a kid or whenever he was a young adult and we were kids, but just never could take the time. But now he's older and doing a different gig. He has the time a little bit more. So it's something that I want to maybe try to start with him and maybe even go farther. But I feel like with gun hunting, you can really make that tradition and really get other people involved. And
That's
then
awesome,
maybe
man.
lead towards bow hunting. But yeah, that's kind of cool. It's a cool little thing that
Yep.
happened today.
My favorite thing too is like when you're out and you know that all your buddies, all your relatives are out. Like throughout bow season, you might just be out, or your buddy might be out the next day,
Sure.
one or two. But like every person that you know is out in the woods that day, and like there's guns blazing, there's deer running around. Like you never know what is going to get pushed off of
Right.
the private that day. You never know. You have no idea. It's just this kind of like there's so much like hope and wonder that goes into that first morning, man. I love
Right.
it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
or every day after that, but especially like opening morning, like you go out, the woods has been untouched as far as gun hunting, and it's like, man, it's all about to break loose, and that
Yeah.
first gun shot goes off, and you're looking, you're like, all right, where are they? They should be coming. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's
So,
always cool. Every year, the hunting public does. I believe Jake is the one that every year he goes out with the family and he sits with his. I don't pay enough attention, but it's his brother or his cousin or something, and they sit there together in the elevated blind and just have a freaking heyday, just shooting the shit out of
yeah,
deer.
I watched both. Yeah, I watched a couple of those just recently too, and
Yeah.
exactly. I never had a spot growing up where I could do that. It was always me
Yeah.
and just my uncle, because like you, my dad worked 2 jobs and never was able to do
Sure.
much fun stuff. So it was me and my uncle going out, and I'd sit in one wooden ladder stand, he'd sit in another, and that was just that. So it would be awesome to actually go and sit up in a blind with somebody and hang out and shoot the shit and sit there and shoot like they do. I think that'd be pretty cool. So,
yeah, that was kind of what I had with my dad this morning. It was pretty cool. Obviously, no deer, and we didn't shoot anything. But I mean, I never knew how much my dad even put into hunting. But he told me a couple hunting stories and a big buck that he chased on our property back then, and it just never could. He said he had 2 encounters with it, and one of which he shot at, and it was like whenever the mechanicals first came out, and as soon as he shot it, it actually deployed, and it hit his riser and kicked off. I don't know. It's weird,
shit,
but
man.
he had us too short of an arrow or something. But said he completely whiffed because of the mechanical, and he said that like a neighbor killed that buck a couple years later, and it was just a giant. But pretty cool. Like I never knew that about my dad, and I've been hardcore hunting for the last 4 years, and I don't know. It was a cool experience.
Yeah, I got to take my wife and kid out last year and sit in the blind with them, and that was something else. They were on their cell phones the whole time and
for
didn't
sure.
really care whatsoever. But
Yeah,
daddy was in heaven. So
yeah. Well, and so my girlfriend, she's got a 9-year-old son, and I took him out last year, and he just wasn't. He did more sleeping and playing on the cell phone, like you said, than anything. But he kind of enjoyed himself. But I've not pushed him to get back out just because he hasn't really said anything about it. But eventually, want to get to that. but took him on his first blood trail this year. My neighbor shot a doe not too far away, and so we took him on the blood trail. And because I have this tendency to shoot deer in the head or the spine, so I don't ever have to have a blood trail, so I can't ever take him on one of mine. So I gotta rely on my friends to do it for me. But he ate it up. He loved it. So it's something that like I said, I want to start a deer camp vibe, and I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I got to find somewhere to do it first.
Yeah, man, I would love to someday. Like, I love hunting public, but I really, really want to have a spot where you can just have, 5 guys, 10 guys, and we kind of have that with BJ's spot, and it's pretty cool. But I rarely, like, we don't have it during shotgun. We have a doe weekend for bow, which is pretty cool. But
I need to make it
camaraderie. But it'd be awesome. I feel like if we had one, a place to do it during shotgun too.
Yeah, it would be cool. So yeah, back to your second buck. I mean, tell as much or as little as you want. I don't know how much you're showing on the video as far as like you said, there's two different kind of scouts compared to, it's completely different compared to your first buck. So I don't know if you really go into that in your video. So, I mean, if not, then this is definitely your opportunity to kind of explain that before the video drops.
Yeah, for sure. So, I've killed lots of different deer, with it's always some form of scouting, but it doesn't necessarily have to just be like what I talked about, like traditional find buck
Boots
sign.
On the ground.
Right. Mm-hmm. Like, so this time it was a totally new piece of property that I had hunted before, a new piece of public. So what I did is basically map scouted it, looked for points of interest, loaded up the backpack with cams, and then went out to each point of interest and started obviously scouting boots on the ground, and then threw up cameras. I think I shotgun like 6 to 8 cams out over on different points of interest, so that I could figure out, really, I want to know pressure. Sure. That's the biggest thing, is like, how many people am I seeing on there, and how am I seeing bucks during daylight, during season? And so that's really the two biggest things that I care about, because and also time of year, but definitely, like, if I'm seeing bucks during daylight pretty regularly, and I'm not seeing people regularly, and then I can formulate a plan on how to get in there, during different winds and not being seen or heard. That's you. Oh. Once again,
blackout.
We're gonna kill this damn battery if it's the last damn thing we do, isn't it?
You can always go for a drive around the block.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, dude, our podcasts together are just cursed. There's always going to be something wrong.
There's always something working.
As long as we can release this one, it'll be all right.
So let me see. There we go. Oh yeah, that's going to give you some wind noise, but all right. So anyway, I shotgunned 6 to 8 cams out there, and I actually didn't hunt it all of last year. I just let all these cams soak the entire year, all the way up to like January or February. And just like I had guessed, because you can usually rule out 80-90% of your spots, right?
Sure.
And I put them. Sometimes though, you'll be surprised, because like when you're map scouting, you're always like, oh, that's too obvious of a spot, like everybody's going to go there. So every once in a while you'll be surprised, like everybody else is thinking that's too obvious of a spot. So
absolutely,
it still pays to throw up a cam in some of those more obvious spots, because every once in a while nobody's in there. And but on this particular one, I had one camera stolen. I had people on 3 or 4 of the cams, and then this one spot was just lots of daylight active bucks and no people, and it had a perfect access, and it made a lot of sense, because it was just a small chunk butted up next to a creek right next to the road, and it was a very tiny piece that was separate from the rest of it. And so it also butted up to a couple of different private pieces. So I thought a lot of people are probably ruling this out based on all of that. So, sure. But I had bucks all 3 times that I was in there. The first time I had that shooter and a bunch of other deer in there. The next time I had a couple of different 3-year-olds in there. I could have shot a really nice 3-year-old right there at the base of my tree. The second time I went in there, and then of course that last time I went in there, I was kind of thinking it was going to be money. The reason I really picked it out, other than just having luck, because like Yeah, of course I seen bucks in there and this and that, but I was thinking that because there was multiple different pieces of private, that there was a good chance that on at least one of those there was going to be some pressure pushing deer.
Sure.
And since they felt safe in there whenever I was hunting in those other times, and they felt like it was a safe area, the does and the bucks, I was like, well, there's definitely going to be something that feels like they can use this security cover and slip on by to wherever they're going. And it's exactly what happened. First, I heard some shots over on the private. A doe came by, and then about 10, 15 minutes later, that buck come creeping through. Had a little bit of a limp, and he came creeping through right at the top of the ridge, right on the edge of the cover. You know, he was kind of still staying just inside of that cover, and he was being real cautious. You know, you could tell he probably either was shot at or was around when something else was just getting shot at down there.
Right.
And I dropped him at like 25, 30 yards. So I could have
Nice.
I could have popped him with the bow, but like I said, I don't really care. It was an awesome hunt. And
Equal opportunity for everybody.
yeah, so he was just a hair under 140, and that's how I ended my season. So I was happy.
Another season in the books, tagged out.
Yeah, and I will tell you this is be careful what you wish for, because you reach a point after you've tagged out where you're like, shit, I want to hunt, man.
You
Like,
can always go kill some does.
yeah, but
It's just
getting
not
up
the
at
same.
2:30 in the morning with
Yeah.
with everything else going on in your life is a lot easier when you got a buck tag in your pocket. I'll tell you that.
I hear you. I still got one.
So, but about that other hunt. So just to give you a little bit of insight too. So I knew that I had to beat everybody else out there, because I figured on shotgun
With the pressure, yeah.
I probably wasn't going to be the only person on this public thinking the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I get out there. I woke up at 2:30, get out there at like 4, and I'm all ready, do my interview, go to leave, and a dude pulls up right next to me, and he's like, "Hey, where are you going?" I said, "I'm not shy." I said, "This is where I'm going." He's like, "That's exactly where I was headed." I was like, "Well, good thing I beat you here." And well, in a nice way, but
Right.
like, he was like, "Yeah," he's like, "I'll go over here." I was like, "All right, bet." And so then when I killed that deer and I come back to the parking lot, a couple of guys there was up here from Southern Illinois, and they was hunting together. And he's like, we get to talking, and they actually ended up helping me drag it out of there.
That's
and
awesome.
yeah, they helped. Woody came and helped, and we get up there, and they're like, dude, holy shit. They're like, first of all, this is ridiculous to get up here to kill a deer. But then they're like, what time did you get up? Because you weren't, we got here early. We stayed right down the road, and you were already here. Like, we camped right down the road. And I'm like, yeah, I was up at 2, got here at 4. They're like, holy shit, yeah, you definitely beat us. But my point in telling that is like, you can't be relaxed, man. Like, you got to force yourself to be the first guy there and the last one out. Like, because that made all the difference in the world. I wouldn't have shot that buck if I'd have gotten up 20 minutes later. That dude would have been there, and he would have went in there. So
well, it's like the WCB guys have been talking quite a bit. Kurt says it all the time. Several podcasts is effort kills deer. Putting in that extra effort.
Yeah, and honestly, like I think we talked about before, like it's really not, when you do put in the effort, it not coming from a cocky standpoint, it's just really not surprising when it works out. Like like it used to be when I was younger. It was like way more amazing that if I had shot a big buck or shot a deer, because it was like so much more of a surprise, and so almost like winning the lottery, right?
That's where I'm at.
Right. Yeah, you're like, holy shit, like you're standing
over. That
like,
just happened, right?
Yes. And then as you go down the rabbit hole and you start really putting in the work and understanding things more, and when it happens, you're happy, but you don't have that surprise anymore. You're like, yeah, like, of course he came out of there, because
that's how I drew it up.
That's what they do. Right.
Yeah. Right.
Like, at least one out of every 10 times, I got to be right.
Right.
So,
3 years of learning and putting the pieces together, it's starting to come together. So you shouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
Right. And the cool thing too was, killing one on a totally separate piece of ground made me feel like, even though I killed him in lots of different areas on this other piece of public, made me feel like not just a one-trick pony too. Like, I can go anywhere, scout, and kill deer. So
right. Yeah, it's one thing to find somewhere on public where year after year you can get it done, but to keep spreading out and keep having success, that says a lot.
Right. And I do have traditional rut stands where I'll sit all
for
day
sure.
year after year, because like we talked about with your buddy on that place where you can get in. If you have a place with does during the rut and there's does there, go sit there. Like,
Yeah. Why wouldn't you?
Don't get involved. Like, you don't have to overcomplicate it.
Sure.
Like, oh, I have to go, run and gun to this spot and that spot. Like, no, there's does there. Go hunt it. Like, hunt it all day.
Yeah.
Your effort now becomes like forcing yourself to sit there day in, day out, all day long, 4 days in a row. Now that's how you're focusing your efforts, as opposed to before you were killing yourself scouting for the rubs and all that. This time you're grinding it out and forcing yourself to mentally just deal with all the bullshit, the harsh weather, and everything that comes with the rut. So
sure. Oh yeah. Well, congrats again on that, on both of them, actually.
Yeah.
But getting it done again. So, I mean, I kind of want to be conscious of your time. We're getting to 11 p.m. and I know you got bedtime.
It's okay.
But
I'm good if you are. I don't care.
yeah,
about
no,
whatever you
I'm
wanna do.
fine, because I was about to go down another rabbit hole.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because whenever you talk about spots like that where that, I mean, you said that was your third sit in that spot. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That
Yep.
second deer. So
Yep.
the deer felt comfortable in there. Obviously.
However, it was October 22nd was the first sit in there, because
Okay.
based off of historical data, I knew that it started heating up late October and early November. So, and then after that first sit, knowing that does were in there feeling comfortable and bucks were in there wanting to bed and hang out, I was like, I have to throw another sit at this place.
Sure.
And I knew there was a good caliber of deer in there too. So,
yep. Well, I know there's a ton of avenues as to why I'm kind of not seeing the success that I would like. I know it has a lot to do with a lot of stuff, but it seems like every time I have any of human intrusion anywhere I go and I find deer, I'm like, oh, I want to come back here because I'm seeing good deer. It's like they disappear. So again, I'm sure there's a lot of different avenues, but I want to start asking about some kind of gear. But most specifically, what do you do as far as like scent control, to try to help yourself out with that human intrusion?
Milkweed and your entrance routes. Literally zero scent showers, zero anything. I crap at the base of my tree. Like, so when I was younger, I went down the rabbit hole of scent control, right?
Sure.
And I literally would do every single step, because you got to think back in the early 2000s, the deer hunting shows were all telling us like, that was back when everybody was still buying into like, you have to be totally scent free and you have to buy this product and buy that, and
then if you use this product, you don't have to worry about the wind.
Yeah, you have to have this acorn cruncher and you're going to have them running to you and all that stuff. So everybody, or at least I was young. I really wanted to kill deer, and I was kind of in your, not necessarily, you're not young, but kind of in your stage of like, wanted to kill deer,
sure.
was willing to put in the work, but didn't really know how to focus my efforts.
Right.
And so I always, since I didn't understand as much deer movement, thermals, winds, things like that, I wanted to cover my scent, because I always thought like, if the deer comes in downwind, I want to be able to not be smelled and stuff like that. But I found, number one, I don't think that you can ever fully eliminate it. Some guys say you can diminish it enough to make it to where it buys you a few extra seconds, or maybe they don't blow. Maybe they just kind of, I don't know, because you can argue that back and forth all day with different amounts of pressure and, whatnot. So I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, because there's no obvious winner there. But I will tell you this. So I remember like a turning point for me was I hunted this like 200-acre private piece, and these guys, this father-son combo, hunted it there, old Carl and young Carl. And young Carl smoked cigarettes, right? And he had this old bear bow, which I started with an old bear bow, but I had moved up to like a Matthews at the time, I think an Outback or something, and it had a big old cam. And I remember him even commenting like, man, look at the big cam on that. And he's standing there smoking a cigarette, showing me like a picture of this 140 some inch deer. And he's got walls full of deer and stuff like that. And I'm sitting there worried about him getting smoke on my clothes because I had just gotten dressed at the truck and, you know, all this and that, and had it all in my scent proof totes and sprayed down. And I was like, what the hell am I doing, man? I'm focusing. I think what a lot of people don't understand on that aspect too is your mental energy. Like your mental energy is finite, right? Like you only have so much of it a day,
for
right?
sure.
Like it's getting late. I'm running out of it. I've been on, 10 all day. Like you only have so much energy that you can put into something effectively, right?
Right. Sure.
So when you're constantly, oh, well, before I go out in the morning, I have to take a shower. Before I go out in the morning, everything has to be put into this bag. Before I go out in the morning, everything has to be scent crushed and put into my truck. Then I have to strip down when I get to my truck. Now I've got to put my boots on and make sure that everything's scent free and blah blah blah. Spray down, get wet before I go out into the cold, right? Like all these things that are just taking up mental energy that you could just be focusing on hunting, right?
Right.
Like I remember another like light bulb moment. I pulled up to a public spot, and I think another father-son duo pops out of this truck, right? And I had been there for like 10, 15 minutes putting my shit on, and these guys jump out, grab their bows, and head off. And I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It was like this whole process
It's taking
is
a lot of
taking
time and
over.
effort.
Yeah. So like, I don't even give a shit. I'll pump gas in my camo. Like I literally don't give a shit about scent control whatsoever. Now, I was on another podcast with Homie and Cody, and they said that they believe that going through it all kept them from getting blown at by does. Like they don't get blown at and this and that. And you could make that argument.
Sure.
My argument against that is the mental energy that you save against doing all of that shit that might save you from getting blown at is not worth it. Like get out there and hunt.
For
you know
sure.
what I'm saying?
Which is good because like I'm super lazy in certain aspects of my life. Like I have I put all my energy into hunting, but there's certain aspects of it that are kind of lazy, and one of those is scent control because like I guess I just haven't bought into it, and I kind of lean more towards what you're saying is that you're not going to fool a deer. Like it doesn't matter what you do. And working a dog has really opened that up for me because there's so many different things that people try to do to hide the odor of narcotics.
Yeah.
And my dog, as time and time again, has smelled through that stuff. So, and they say deer their noses are even better than dogs. So
yeah, like 10,000 times more
seeing it
receptors.
firsthand. Yeah. So then I'm like, dude, this is just a waste of time. Like I run ozone still every once in a while, but that's it. And even then I feel like I'm, I don't understand wind yet. I'm really, really trying to put a lot of effort into it, with thermals and different areas. But like
if I wrote a book called How to Kill Deer for Dummies, right? It would be this simplified. Okay. Obviously first make sure that all your gear is on, right? Like make sure that you are dead on. But after that, if you just want to get into like your strategy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that you are as quiet as possible with your gear. Make sure that you are as efficient as possible with your gear as far as your setup. If you're just going in on the ground, be as efficient as you can. But entrance route is probably the most important thing. How you access your stand, which this isn't like, I'm not telling you some groundbreaking thing, but like, just to reiterate, like there is not too many things more importantly than how you access your stand.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And like you said, you don't quite understand wind and thermals, and it takes a while before that shit really sinks in. And there are times during the rut where none of that shit matters. You just find I mean, like every once in a while, you're out there, you're grinding it out, and you're like, look, that's the spot I need to be. I don't give a shit if there's a tornado right there. I'm going to go sit there and try and kill a deer.
For sure.
So, but like I said, if I was saying entrance route is so important and the wind on your entrance route. So like people always think like, oh yeah, like I'm going to take this entrance route, this and that. But if I probably don't even want to know the amount of deer and the caliber of deer that I busted out early on in my hunting career by taking the wrong access route and my wind blowing to them while I was walking in there. Right.
Sure.
Because I just didn't put enough I didn't put enough emphasis on it in my mind. I thought, oh, I'm scent free as I can be. And, that's a good spot. I just got to get there. And like your ground scent is super important. If you are crossing where that deer is going to cross before you're going to have a shot at it, you're going to have problems if you make that a habit. So I've said this before too, is your tree selection when you're running and gunning, you need to figure that out as you're getting to it, not once you've passed it. Because a lot of the times, and I'm everybody's guilty of it, you go too far, you realize you're too far, right? You're too far, and now you're backtracking, and where you expect that deer to be to shoot him, you just stood there.
You were just standing there, yeah.
Yeah. So you really, really, really have to be conscious of that. That's a super, like, my scent control has to do with minimizing where I'm walking and making sure that my scent is as much as it can be not blowing where the deer are and where they're going to come from.
Sure.
So you have to, those are the most important things. Everything else is secondary to that. When chasing big bucks. And I will add, like, just put even more emphasis, like, you have to mentally turn on a switch to chase big bucks and not deer. I can remember going in with my uncle and cousin who taught me how to deer hunt and watching videos and this and that, and thinking like, man, this is one beaten down deer trail. They all come together right here. This is going to be fire. And I can't wait to get in here. And you either didn't see deer or you might have seen a couple does. And that was it, right? Well, that's because you're not hunting big bucks. You were just going in there looking for deer sign.
Deer,
right? Like, hey, there was some deer here at one point. I'm going to sit up right here.
Right. They're almost a different animal because so many times I've done just that. Find high traffic areas and sit on those. Some really good trails that meet up right here, and maybe there's a scrape nearby, but that's just a high traffic area, and I see deer. I see several deer, but I don't see the mature class of buck that I'm eventually trying to work towards.
And you're wasting a sit, man.
Yeah.
It's never a wasted sit if you learn something and you learn towards your goal, and every time you do. But like, there's high percentage sits where you can learn something, right? Sure. And as you go on in your hunting career too, you learn just how to avoid those bullshit sits. Like, I still will have one or two a season where, like I said, those first 2 days of the season, I'm sitting there going, like, I already know I'm in a bullshit sit before, like, once I'm set up. And if it's too late, I'm like, this was a bullshit sit. And every once in a while those work out, but like, you're in a bullshit sit, and like, you have to go in to kill every single time. Sure. And if that means bumping a deer, so be it. If that means that you go in and you're, like I said, you go too far and then you have to back up, but you still need to be going in there to kill and not just to go in there hoping to see some deer, I guess is my point. So
for sure,
if you don't go in with the mentality of a reason why you're going into an area, how you're going to access it with all of the factors in your favor, you're never going to kill big bucks, especially pressured big bucks.
Sure. Yeah. And I'm definitely not getting that done yet, but I try to at least have that whenever I'm going into a spot, when I pick a spot.
Well, and you being mobile, you're already like 10 times ahead of the curve, because a lot of guys want to go in, find one spot and hunt it a bunch of times. So you're jumping around, you're getting on deer already. It just comes to fine tuning of knowing where exactly that, because I want to, like I've said before, I want to be able to jump on that deer, right? I want that deer to be right there in my face. I don't want to be seeing him through my binoculars and admiring him. I want to be like right there. I want him to be there. So you start as you go, learning, like, understanding how deer use ridges, how they use saddles, and where, especially like secondary ridges are huge, because like leeward sides of secondary ridges. So like, once you get past, if you can put water and elevation in between you and the other people, that eliminates like 80% of the pressure.
Sure.
Then you got the other guys that are athletic and maybe they know a little bit what they're doing, and then you have to fine tune it from there and get in there, especially on, like, now you have a second ridge, so you've already put some water, some elevation. You go in, you get up into that second ridge, you find some brushy cover, and then you start dissecting it and figuring out, okay, this either looks like where a big buck would live or it doesn't. There's too much human sign. There's not enough buck sign. You know, I haven't jumped anything, yada, yada, yada. You know,
Sure.
Am I going to throw a camera here? What am I going to do here? And then you start figuring it out. But you have to go in there, like I said, with the mindset that you're hunting big bucks. You're not just going in there, finding a good deer trail and setting up.
For sure.
And even then, when you're hunting big bucks, understand that they don't move like does, because does are going to move very consistently and they're going to come out a lot earlier. They're going to, they're going to graze around a lot more. Big bucks tend to have something on their mind, and they tend to do it. They don't tend to meander as much. So,
and even like you talked about earlier, and I've had experience with this, is a lot of those big ones won't jump. They'll know you're there, but they won't jump till you damn near kick them in the ass.
Right.
Because they'll see if they can get by with you walking by, and then maybe escaping on the way out.
A lot of times they don't snort either.
Yeah.
I mean,
they don't make a noise
because they don't want anything to know that it was even there. Right.
Yeah.
Like that's usually the snorting. A lot of the time, I'm not saying big bucks don't snort, but a lot of the time that's the doe mentality of like, alerting the herd, or,
Sure.
their other doe group, as opposed to like the buck is a solitary animal. So he's not trying to alert anybody. He's trying to get out of there safe.
Yep, for sure. Yeah. And I've seen that firsthand. So,
yeah.
Well, we can start wrapping it up. So I remember you talking, and I know this will still go on for another 45 minutes, but last time we did this, I asked you what one of your biggest maybe pieces of advice was, and you talked a lot about gear, and you kind of mentioned it already, but you have a very strong belief in having your gear all ready and as efficient as possible. So kind of break that down a little bit.
Yeah, if there's one thing, like, at least that I've seen, that big buck killers across the board have like going for them, like that they would all, like, everybody has their own style and things that they do and utilize to, some guys are better at reading trees, like what kind of mass, other guys are a lot better at reading sign, other guys are really, really good at figuring out exactly where a big buck is bedding and stuff like that. So everybody has their strengths and weaknesses. But the one thing across the board that I would say, like, that all of them have is organization with their gear, right? Like, it's huge, because like for me, the hunt does not start that morning. The hunt does not start that season. Like, if I wasn't podcasting with you right now, I would be in there. I have all of my gear sitting there, and I go through it dang near every night, every day, every chance I get away from the kids, away from work. Like, it's literally, I live my setup. And that might sound screwed up and messed up, but like,
You're getting the job done. And there's a reason. Yeah.
That, like, everybody wants it to be easy, but like, there's literally nothing easy about killing a big buck. And spraying yourself with a magic spray, putting out doe urine, or magic urine, whatever you want to call it. There's no easy button. And once you fall in love with doing the work, that's the results come. Like anything else, like you said, wrestling, your job, right? Like, you fall in love with the work and
the process. Yeah.
You literally don't give a shit about the result. Like, the result almost sucks because now it's over, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, if there was one aspect I could tell people to do, is get their shit to have synergy, everything flowing together, right? Like, every part of my gear, I try and have it work with the other parts of the gear, right? Like, I want everything to be seamless from the time I get out of the truck to the time I get up in my tree. Now, is it always seamless? No. But I go back to the drawing board, figure out what went wrong, and then fix it. And next time go out, and I'm constantly testing little things just to make it better. So something might work, but that's not good enough. It needs to, you can always make it better, right? So, like, if you're a run and gunner, you live and die by your setup.
For sure.
So your setup has to be bulletproof. And I want to be confident. Like, I don't even have to think about it. I throw my shit on my back at my truck. I head out, and I'm never thinking about my setup. I get there, I go through it. I've already practiced it. I've been messing with it. I know it inside and out. Like, literally all I have to do is climb my tree, get up in there, everything goes up the same way dang near every time.
Yep.
And all I got to do is get up in there and hope that my setup, works out. So
For sure.
if you're, I'm not saying that you can't take some jumbled mess out there and make it work, but if you want to be a consistent big buck killer on public land, make sure your shit is quiet. Make sure that it all flows together and everything is very easy and not fighting you the whole time. And make sure that you have a system. Make sure that
Right.
you know your system inside and out before you're doing it in the dark. Because like I said, you're gonna have kinks every year. First sit or so, you're gonna have kinks, and you work them out.
Yeah.
By the time the rut hits, I'm like run and gun Rambo. Like I'm pulling out. I already know what I'm pulling out of my sack. You know what I'm saying? Like
For sure.
I'm just going up the tree, getting up in there, and like I'm not even thinking about it. I'm just doing it. So
yeah, for sure. It becomes very efficient. But yeah, and I think something that's helped me is being willing to adapt, because something usually goes wrong, even though it's the same setup and I do it every time. Sometimes it's the tree, or whatever. You just have to be able to adapt as well. And then, like you said, maybe figure out if something's not working correctly, and then go back to the drawing board when you get back home and say, all right, how can I do better here?
Well, and there's little tricks you can learn too for different situations. So like understanding that it all has to be the same, but every once in a while, every time, like you said, you're going to get a wrench thrown in some part of it, and you need to be ready for that too. So you're not just practicing expecting every tree to be straight up and down, perfect size, quiet, this and that. Like you said, you have to adapt, and you have to have the skill set to adapt already in place, and not figuring it out on the fly. Because the last thing you want to do is be up there, you're in this spot, you've scouted, you're up in there, and all of a sudden, tink, something makes a loud metal noise and you screwed it up right as you just jumped into your stand. Or you get up in there and you're going to set something up and your backpack drops on the floor. You know what I mean? Like just
For sure.
little dumb shit that would never happen in a million years, but it happened. So you have to be able to adapt, and you have to be ready for it. So
for sure.
And people don't put enough emphasis on that, because I watch intently all the YouTube videos, and just like you do, just like every other hunter, we all sit there, we watch YouTube, and you'll see somebody shit just thrown on there, just you know what I mean, and you know that at some point that's giving them problems, that's making noise, and that's spooking deer, or at least probably costing them a deer somewhere along the line.
Yeah, probably. So we got to talk about the sky dump real quick. I know we already kind of gotten into it, but I definitely explain in detail for the listeners the new method of shitting in the woods.
All right. So before, we had the 2-bag system with the wet wipes and the medical gloves, right? And that worked well enough. And I may revisit that someday, but like I said, I've since gone to I don't even care. I'm going to shit off the tree. Now granted, I will hold it as long as I possibly can. And like I talked about on the other time, the one that we recorded that didn't get out there, dressing warm is a big thing. So for me, anytime it goes below 30 degrees, I'm wearing my heater bodysuit. And that not only helps keep me on the stand longer because I'm not cold, but it also keeps me from having to take a shit for whatever reason. Because the second that excitement wears off from the morning, and then you're relaxed and that cold hits you, for me, that's the second that, shit starts rumbling. I get the bubble guts, and now I'm just fighting it for the next 2-3 hours until I finally got to let her rip. So, part of the shitting process is shit prevention.
Yes.
So, when you do have to do the deed, I bought a 2-panel saddle, the Method Latitude 2, and the nice thing about it is you're up there, you're tethered in, and you're safe the whole time. So you basically just drop the seat on your 0.5, your mobile, the stand that I use, the Lone Wolf Custom Gear 0.5, put your knees against it, drop your tether, spread the panels, and let her rip. So
fantastic.
Yeah,
I definitely. So I have a single panel, but I'm still gonna try it.
Well,
but yeah,
if you have a back band, it might work, but
I don't. But I'll figure it out. I think I can make it happen. But yeah, I mean, like I talked about last time, man, some people get so weird about pooping in the woods, and I'm like, being in the woods and doing anything makes it makes it better, at least for me. Sitting in the woods, not saying anything, a million different things. If I were in the woods, it would be more pleasurable. Taking a shit's no different. I mean, it's just you're in nature. It's beautiful. It's most of the time it's a great, just a great sit. And
It's euphoric, man.
you're taking a dump, and I don't know. There's something about it. So I've gotten pretty known for taking nature poop videos after I get done. It's pretty fantastic. And then, like I think I did talk about in the last one, but this season is the first season that I kind of experimented with calling, specifically rattling, and so I'll actually wait until I have to shit, which is every time I go out. I wait and I actually leave my antlers down on the ground. So whenever I climb down, which I'm gonna have to change it now that I know about the sky dump, but I'll leave those on the ground, and then I'll get down, do my business, take my beautiful nature shit, and then I'll grab the antlers and start racking them together and making a bunch of noise and kicking sticks around and staying away from my poop so I don't slide in it. But
well, you got to shit. Yeah, you got to shit there to assert dominance and let them know, like, hey, this is my tree. This is my area. Like, you're gonna have to fight me if you want to.
Yes.
You want to take this?
So spread my testosterone around this whole area. Come and fight me.
Yeah. Well, if you sky dump, that's the one thing is. So if you always got to look down and make sure you didn't drop anything like a grunt tube or anything, because that shit carries. You got to adjust for the wind like 2 to 4 inches and shit. So
that's fantastic.
I came like this close to hitting this hat with the sky dump that had dropped. So it was pretty close. So just watch it out there. Stay safe.
It's a dangerous game.
Yes.
Playing the new dumping system's a dangerous game, but
watch your six, literally.
But you said on the last one that how many deer that you've killed, there's been shit at the base of your tree?
Yes, like probably the last 3 deer that I've killed. At least 3, at least the last, there's been a couple of them in there for sure in the last few deer that I've killed that there was shit either intentionally or unintentionally at the base of my tree. And I even think that the biggest one I ever killed looked over and saw the bag of shit and then went to run, and then I shot him. So like the last memory that deer probably has is my bag of shit on the ground.
Was your bag of shit on the ground. That's
fantastic. Kind of messed up.
So. Well, Brian, I appreciate your time again. It's always a pleasure to get together. Honestly, I think this one was needed, that we needed to redo it. I think we stayed on topic a lot better. Whenever you get two guys like us talking and we just keep thinking of different stuff, sometimes it seems like we jump around. So I think we did a lot better on this one. But again, thanks for staying up. It's almost freaking midnight on a Sunday. I'm sure you got to work tomorrow. You got a family, but you definitely we're eager to take the time out again to get this done, and so I do appreciate that.
Hey man, I always have fun, so I appreciate you having me on.
For sure, and I also appreciate obviously the lessons that you've already given me and that you will continue to give me, because I'm going to keep asking you and I'm going to keep bringing you on, and you're going to keep killing big deer, so we're going to keep talking about it. So
hopefully it doesn't come off as too preachy. I want to reiterate that I just love this shit. So I will talk about it with, even if nobody was listening to this podcast,
sure.
I really wouldn't care. I don't really do anything other than deer hunt, other than hang out with my family and work. So like for me, I would do this for, like every single day, because usually I'm talking about deer hunting and nobody cares. So it's nice to actually have somebody that gives a shit. So
yeah. It's like some guys will get serious about it for about 2 weeks, and it's like, well, for the rest of the year, I need somebody to talk to. It's like I get annoyed to those people, but during those 2-3 weeks of the first couple of weeks of hunting season, then that's all they want to talk about. It's like, I need you in August,
January.
January, March. I'm chasing turkeys, but I still want to talk about deer.
Well, speaking of, though, last time you did bring up something that I wanted to put on here too, and that was just the late season hunting.
Yes.
If I could just make a quick point, through running trail cameras, lots of trail cameras over, multiple different public properties and things like that. Not that it's a secret, but like, I just want to reiterate that, especially on public, like new deer come in to areas and they're much more patternable. If you can catch a deer doing something one day, usually he's in there doing it 2, 3, sometimes up, to a week's worth of days in that same area. I don't know. I can speculate on whether or not he's in there with where hot does, like the late hot does are coming in. Maybe he's just in a late food source and then he moves on or whatever. But like I even more so than October and November, and I think because more people are hitting the woods in October, there's more food sources available.
Sure.
They become much more patternable in the late season. So if you haven't filled your tag yet, like right now, usually when I go collect my cameras in January and stuff, I'm always like, dude, December was fire. Like,
Yeah.
God, I wish I could hunt December more. And
yeah, I'm not taking anything you say seriously because you've never hunted late season because you killed too many bucks before the late season. So you have no idea what you're talking about.
I agree, and I'm only going off of trail cam data because like I have hunted a few late season days, and but I generally don't make it there, and so I always
problem to have.
Yeah, I'm telling this nugget because screw it, I want everybody else to get out there and kill them. So
that's what I'm all about, man. Other people's success is awesome. It's still successful for me,
Yeah. I really don't care as long as somebody's out there slaying deer. I'm happy. So
I'll ask one question about that. What have you noticed? If you were to pick a food source, what are you seeing around you on public land late season? Is there a specific one, or is it just kind of specific to the area?
Well, like you touched on, I don't get to hunt it enough to actually know for sure. I just go off of, because most of the time I don't move my cameras. I don't make it back out there to move my cameras. So they're still sitting in the like the bedding areas or the transition areas and things like that they were previously. So basically I get, a nice deer on there anywhere from 2 to 4 days. Sometimes it's one time, and who knows why, but most of the time, if you get a big deer, he's in that area for 2 or 3 days going around. And it could be because he's in there after those young does or those late does that haven't come in yet. So again, that's all speculation because I really have no idea. I just know that my cameras always have giant deer on them that I didn't get to chase. Another thing is I never get to be out there on Halloween. It's no secret that Halloween's great, but every single year there's like 5 big bucks that will come through and hit a scrape on Halloween.
Yes. Dude, it's nuts.
It's if you don't hunt Halloween because you're like me and you have kids, like you get it, man. Like I had a giant 12-pointer daylighting right there where I would have been. Wind was perfect, and he was saved by Halloween. So 2 things I wish I could hunt more was Halloween and late season. So
yep. Well, maybe one of these days you'll only kill 1 deer in October and hold out until December.
Well, in the future, I'm gonna try. Like this year, I told him I kind of relaxed my standards a little bit because of the baby coming, but I'm really gonna try and push that envelope of the 150 or nothing because I don't have any room for mounting any more deer in the house. So it's got to be something that I can tell explain to the wife why this one has to be mounted. So
yes, well, there's plenty of room in the pig pen here.
Oh, that's right.
If you ever need anywhere to store your deer,
honey, don't worry about it. Devin said we got plenty of room.
Yep, I gotta take a bunch of them there. We're gonna do a podcast, and it's gonna be a good old time.
She's looking at me though. It's funny because like my wife look at me like another 140, like she doesn't even really know, but she's like, "Why are you shooting that deer?" You know what I mean? So
anyway, gets your blood going.
Right. I'll shoot a 140 till I die, but at the same time, I'm kind of the point where I want to get one that. Like the next one I get, I want to mount it, and that's kind of where I'm at. So next year, the new baby will be a little bit bigger, and I'm going to get a little bit more selective, I think. So
for sure. Well, thanks again for coming on. Anybody listening to this, get on YouTube, check out Good Sit, not shit, Good Sit Productions. It might change names here within the next, I don't know, however many years. It might change to Good Shit Productions. Who knows? But check out Brian's videos. Hopefully the next one is coming soon. Can't wait to see it. Always enjoy those. If you have any questions for Brian, either get a hold of me, or I know you can find him on a lot of the like Illinois Public Land Facebook pages, Run and Gun, stuff like that. He's on and pretty active on a lot of those. In fact, he just sparked a good question about cell cams earlier tonight, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, there was a few unhappy people, but what are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, fuck it, whatever. But it's hilarious that you even started it. But yeah, so get a hold of me or get on the Facebooks, look for him. Yeah, I mean, I think you're a wealth of knowledge. I think obviously you're doing the right things. You're bucking out every year, and you're doing it before December every year. So
Well, and I'll leave you with this too is so like you know, if you get down and you start feeling like oh, you know, like I don't have the knowledge, or you know, I'm just not doing the right things and stuff like that. I look at it like that movie Groundhog's Day, where I've just been living the same day over and over so many times that I've just seen it so many times. So
Sure.
like you'll get there as long as you keep grinding it out, as long as you keep believing in your process, and as long as you stay focused. If you're out there listening, like, and you're not quite to where you want to be, and sometimes you feel lost and like maybe you're not even doing the right things to get you there, like just realize that through repetition, you know, of constantly focusing on trying to do the right thing, eventually you get there and it starts to all make sense. So
yeah, putting in the work, eventually it'll pay off.
yeah, and like, you know, the fake it till you make it, like eventually it's gonna hit you and you're gonna be like, dude, I understand a little bit, like never fully,
Sure.
but I understand a little bit how big bucks move. So
Sure. Yep. All right, Brian. Again, I appreciate the fuck out of you getting on here and spreading your knowledge to me.
Yeah.
Shout out to BJ. Thanks for jumping on at the beginning and then abandoning us because you have a job or whatever.
Yeah, honestly, that was not enough BJ time on here. So hopefully
No,
next time
we
we
always
get
love
him
us
on
some
here.
BJ time. The big ugly ogre. So, all right, everybody.
Yeah.
If you don't mind looking us up on the Instagrams and everything like that, you know, same shit as always. Give us a like, give us comments, interact. We're trying to build that community and keep it going. So appreciate you all. Apologize, it's been a little while since we've recorded. It's been a busy season hunting or working for the three of us. And then we, like I said, we did one with Brian here a couple weeks ago, and I'm just an idiot and messed it all up. So we had to redo it. So, but we got more coming on the way. So stick with us, and good luck for the rest of your season.
Yeah. Bye.
All right. Later.
Later. I'm going to bed.
I don't blame you.
Yeah. Later, buddy.